All right, welcome. This is DB Talking Now, DB Talking Birds, DB Talking Philadelphia Eagles. Happy Friday, everybody. Happy Friday. We have quite a bit to get into, quite a bit of exciting news and a whole lot more. Is Derek Barnett on the move? He could be. There's rumors circling the rumor mill, as according to Bleacher Report, the Browns are interested in trading for Derek Barnett. Darius Slay reworks his contract, guys, saves us about $9.1 million. Lane Johnson is now in contract renegotiation talks, so that is awesome. And then Georgia cornerback Eric Stokes runs a 4.240 at his pro day. That's big news as well. That is big news as well. He's one of those guys who in some mock drafts they listed him as going in the late first, but he was technically generally probably early second round pick. But with that 4.240, do teams take the bait, or is the hype real? Is the hype of that 4.240, is that something real? Also, recently, I also want to get into something that Jalen Mills said as well. It was a good move for both teams for the Carson Wentz trade to happen. It's interesting because that is 24 hours after, that's 24 hours after Brandon Graham said that. It's 24 hours after Jason Peters said that. Something tells me that something was said along the lines, and this is a theory, so it's okay. It's a theory. I like to theorize sometimes, that there's a message going on saying that if these players want to play and stay, they got to get on board with the move, the Carson Wentz move, because these are leaders. These are leaders that have been making these statements over the last 24 hours. And I'm talking about Jason Peters. I'm talking about Brandon Graham. I'm talking about Jalen Mills. Whether we like him as a leader or not, guys, he is a leadership presence and does have those qualities. So it's very interesting. And Jalen Mills is also one of those guys that we have been talking about as in terms of staying on the team. Obviously, as I've mentioned in previous streams, I don't want to bring him back for like a 3-year, $16 million deal. I don't think he's worth that. But if we can get him on the cheap, I think he would definitely be still worth keeping and competing. Jason Kelce returning is huge. Jason Kelce's also returning, and that is huge, huge news. Does it eliminate us from taking a guy like Creed Humphrey in the draft? No, it doesn't. Or a guy like Michael Monet? No, it does not. But out of Penn State, but no, but still, it is a huge thing. Jason Kelce is the leader of leaders of our team. He has been that way and will remain that way until he does finally hang up the cleats. He's been the absolute example of what it means to represent the Philadelphia Eagles and the city during the time that he's been in the for the franchise on the team. So since we've drafted him, and so getting rid of a guy like that would not have been ideal. But let's go ahead and talk about this. I want to jump on these contract renegotiations a little bit. So I obviously mentioned this last week in my streams that there were 5 players that I listed that could save us around $40 million. And some of those guys were Fletcher Cox. We extended him 2 years. Brandon Brooks was another one. And then Derek Barnett obviously is another one. If we either cut him or trade him, it's $10 million. If we renegotiate him, it's about $7 million that we would save. And then there's also guys like Marquise Goodwin. He was another one. And then Lane Johnson was another one, right? So, I may have mentioned that one already, but my point is there were 5 guys that I mentioned that could have saved us around $40 million. Darius Slay did not pop into mind. So the $9.1 million that we just saved by reworking Darius Slay's contract is huge. But now they're on the roll. They're on the road. They're spinning the wheels, and they're now getting to Lane Johnson, it sounds like. And they're also working on Brandon Graham. Those reports came out a couple days ago. They're already working on Brandon Graham's contract as well, and now they're spinning the tires on Lane Johnson. Guys, this is exactly what we talked about. This is exactly what we need. This is exactly what we need moving into the weeks to come when it comes to free agency, because we are getting to the point where it is on the brink of the start of free agency, and we need to get somewhere closer to a manageable cap so we can at least add some guys. We're not going to add the big name. We're not going to add the dynamic playmaker, but there may be some guys, some solid contributable guys that we can probably add, like a Malik Hooker, you know what I mean? Probably like a Hassan Reddick. We might be able to do that. Hassan Reddick did do a great job of increasing his value toward the end of the season, over the second half of the season for the Arizona Cardinals this past season. But, you know, he's not going to demand a lot of money. It's not going to be like, you know, I've seen some reports about the Eagles, about, you know, the guys that the Eagles should probably look into if they can. And those guys were like playmakers, like wide receiver, like Kenny Galladay. And while I would love to have Kenny Galladay on this team, you know, I can't tell you how much he's going to cost. I really can't. I would think it would be in the realm of around $8 to $10 million per year, and that's a lot. That is a lot. Here's the thing, though. I mean, they're planning to release Alshon Jeffrey. They have not done that yet. They're planning. They've already released Djax. And so there's been a little bit of money that's been cleared up. There really has. But they have a few more moves to make. But as of this moment, I do trust Howie Roseman to get those moves made. So we'll just have to see. I mean, if they can bring in Kenny Galladay and if they can bring in Kenny Galladay, and that is a huge if, you know, it's a good move. It's a good move, because then you're not pressed to add a wide receiver early in the draft, right? I mean, then if he's there, Kyle Pitts, you can take Kyle Pitts, and you got Kenny Galladay, and then maybe you can, maybe you can go ahead and do something. You can do something else with that second round pick, plain and simple. But also let's go ahead and touch on Georgia cornerback Eric Stokes, guys. That's insane. I mean, he already had some great potential coming into this draft, but to run a 4.2, I mean, that's really, really good. Patrick J and I touched on Eric Stokes a little bit, and he's one of those guys that you could probably move around from safety to cornerback, and we both really like him a lot out of Georgia. For him to run a 4.2 is great, is phenomenal. Now, obviously, there's no combine due to COVID, but players are still able to have their pro days, and so that is a really good job. And usually some teams prefer the pro days over the combine anyway. And so I got to give him credit. It's like talking about it yesterday in yesterday's stream. It's like Kyle Pitts doing the 10-yard split in like 1.2 seconds, 1.3 seconds. It's really good. Those are individual pro days. And you don't take those with a grain of salt. You take them with the whole bag of rigamaroos. Like you really do. You really, really, really do. So getting to the Derek Barnett trade rumors, it has been reported that the Browns have shown interest and that the Eagles are listening to offers. Joey Shakes, another YouTuber that I absolutely love to watch. Shout out to Joey Shakes, absolutely phenomenal. Does a great job with his content about the birds. So if you don't know who he is, go like and subscribe to him. He touched on this a little bit too. The Eagles are listening to offers. Right, the Eagles are listening to offers. They aren't ready to pull the trigger on any of them yet, but as we know, as evidence is shown, if the Eagles are willing to listen to offers, then something is cooking. The fires are being stoked. And so if the fires are being stoked, then something could be coming. Something could definitely be coming, and I think that it's going to be. I think that there's something going that's going to be done. To be completely honest with you, I think there's something that will be done in terms of Derek Barnett. He's just not worth the first round pick. He hasn't been. I would love to say that he was. He's not. He's not though. He hasn't. He's also not done the. He's also not worth the $10 million that he would be making on his 5th-year option. Now he didn't do bad last season, but he didn't do well enough to earn $10 million this year. He didn't do well enough to earn $7 million. You know what I mean? And as Joey Shake so graciously put it, and I touched on this a little bit ago as well. Josh Sweat has progressed and developed quite a bit over the last few years, especially comparatively to where he was when he was coming out of college. And he did phenomenal for being a rotational player last season. He had 8.5 sacks as a rotational player. Derek Barnett was supposed to be the starter, and Josh Sweat was a rotational player. Josh Sweat had 8.5 sacks. Derek Barnett had about 6, maybe 6.5. But so Derek Barnett is a Brandon Graham, is having that. Derek Barnett is having the beginning of his career is like Brandon Graham's. But will it look like Brandon Graham's towards the end? I don't know. Brandon Graham has turned into an absolute stud against the run. Brandon Graham has turned into a leader. Brandon Graham continues to exhibit a relentless motor that just does not stop. And that was the same thing that he demonstrated coming out of college too. And that's why we reached for him, and that's why we liked him so much. But neither here nor there. If the Browns are interested, what would you guys want to take? What would you if we could get a player in return for Derek Barnett? Who would that player be, guys? My thoughts immediately went to Odell Beckham Jr. Obviously, I have some cons. There's pros and cons to that, and I have some cons, and it's Odell Beckham Jr. The locker room, his effect on a locker room is shaky, and he seems to be so dynamic of a wide receiver. He just ends up, ruining a quarterback's mechanics, and it's not his fault. It's just that he improvises. His improvisation ruins a quarterback's mechanics. He did it with Eli. He did it with Baker Mayfield, and so And we saw that because Eli got better. Eli was better without Odell on the field, and so was Baker. So, but here's the thing. If they can do a player for player swap, would you guys do it? I trust in Jalen Hurts' leadership so much, and the magnetic force apparently that he seems to have so much, and that comes with persona. That's not a false thing. That does come with a person that has a dynamic, vibrant persona that is just absolutely electric. I think from what it sounds like, Jalen Hurts has that. I believe in it so much for him that maybe it could clear the pathway for Odell Beckham Jr. to be okay in the locker room in Philadelphia. But other than that, if it's not a player for player swap, probably a 3rd round pick, I would think. 3rd round pick, 4th round pick for Derek Barnett. It's not bad. It nets us another player in this draft. So, but if they are able to rework Lane Johnson's contract, and it looks like they're restructuring it because they had the opportunity to either renegotiate or restructure, and they're restructuring, it's going to save us quite a bit of money as well. So those moves are being made, and that is phenomenal. That is absolutely phenomenal. I want to touch on Jason Kelce a little bit. So Jason Kelce coming back, and that doesn't exude us, that doesn't exemplify us from taking Creed Humphrey or Michael Manet out of Penn State. Reason why I say that, Michael Manet out of Penn State and Creed Humphrey, they can both play all along the inside of the line, all along the inside of the line, and so you take those guys. You wait for the day that Jason Kelce retires, and then you can move one of those guys over to center. So I've touched on that before, and it's neither here nor there. We don't really have to go into it. We don't really have to go into it that much, but that's pretty much it. I'm going to be back with you guys later in the day, probably, and definitely tomorrow. It seems like things are getting hot and heavy, and there's going to be more moves made. I'm really, really excited about all of this. And so I'll just have to keep us on the clock, keep our fingers on the pulse, and make sure that we're all good to go and on tap. You know what I mean? So at some point, I'm gonna try and get Patrick J back on the show as well, and we'll go ahead and continue to talk about free agency draft and all of that jazz. But hey, this is DB talking now, DB talking Birds, DB talking Philadelphia Eagles. You guys stay safe, stay healthy. One love, go Birds, and please visit streamlabs.com/dbtalkingnow/tip. And then also streamlabs.com/dbtalkingnow/merch. And you guys have a beautiful day. Go Birds, baby. Go Birds.